Welcome to Voices from Below, a podcast where we share the real stories and experiences of miners. Our aim is to foster understanding and positive change by highlighting personal experiences and insights without focusing on specific individuals or organizations. The views shared here are personal and not necessarily those of the podcast team. Thanks for joining us. Hi, everyone, and thanks for tuning in to Voices from Below. Today, we're talking with Raj, who has extensive experience in the mining industry. Raj, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Aiden, for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and could you start off by introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about your journey in the mining industry?
Well, yeah. So I'll just give you a quick background on my back. So I'm originally from Fiji Islands. I was very fortunate to grow up in Australia. And I spent grade 5 to 8 in Australia, then moved back to Fiji, and then my family moved to Canada when I was 16 to Vancouver. And so I graduated high school in Canada, and then decided to take a break and then worked for a bit in the industry. And then my dad get your butt to university and college, get a career. And then I was looking up positions. So Canada, as being the second largest continent in the world, so we have most of the biggest export for Canada is natural resources, right? So logging to mining to oil. So mining industry is pretty big and renowned. So when I was looking at opportunities, mining caught my eye. And initially, none of my family members in the mining industry, so I was the first one to go to mining industry. And biggest selling point was I went to British Columbia Institute of Technology in Burnaby, British Columbia. And so they said the highest paid job in Canada. I'm like, sold. I'm applying. And so started the classes and met some really amazing people as classmates. And one of the best things about going to school in the mining program was the BCIT invested some of the funds they got from some investors, and so then they had all the field trips paid for. So anytime you went to field trip, everything was paid for, and then you're a 21-year-old kid, you're getting $50 a day to spend on food. Obviously,
Wow.
what you're gonna spend in, right? So, so we had a really good time, and one of my biggest thing was the history part of mining, and so I was a huge history buff, and then through the classes and actually visiting the mines and small towns in British Columbia, I kind of fell in love with the whole mining history and culture. Some really amazing people, right? So, and some great stories. You meet people from prospectors and stuff. And so, for my summer internship, my first one, I ended up in all the way in Northwest Territory, Canada, at a diamond mine, and that was my first exposure to camp job. And it was massive. I think it was like 2,000 man camp, and when you're working there summertime, the sun doesn't go down. It's 23 hours of daylight, and so that was the first exposure of uh, around midnight. The sun comes down, it's red, and then it goes up again, and it's back to full blast sun. So it took me like 3 4 days to get used to that weather cycle because you
Wow.
never lived that close to the Arctic Circle, and so that experience was really amazing. I met some amazing people there, and then my second internship, I was fortunate to get with an exploration company out of Vancouver, and we were in the middle of British Columbia, drilling for gold and copper, and so that was another amazing. So we had to do some EMT training because when you're in the camp job, you don't have anyone, so you got helicopters, so you're middle of nowhere, 3 hours to the nearest town. And I think the best part was just waking up, and it was 8,000, 7,000 feet elevation, and you were right in the Rockies. And then you wake up and the snow's there, and it's foggy, and it's just beautiful. You're like, I'm getting paid to be here. So those two experiences kind of defined why I stick around in mining, was just meeting amazing people, and then the history, and also going to places no one usually goes to, right?
Yeah.
Um, so that kind of got in my blood. And then after graduation, I was fortunate to end up in Northern Nevada to work at the gold mines there. And so that again was a really amazing experience and exposure and opportunities I got. So, and then that's why I told you, like, jump through different locations.
I mean, you mentioned that when they said it was the highest paying job in Canada, you kind of jumped at that. But was there anything specifically that you thought about the mining industry specifically? In coming from a place where that might not be as well known or well thought of as wanting to work for. Did you have some maybe preconceived notions about it possibly?
This is my nerding out part about it. You're watching Lord of the Ring, right? The mines of Moria with the dwarfs, and I'm like, this is so awesome. I'm just gonna go dig up, a
Yeah.
hole and maybe find a monster. Who knows? But so, I mean, my naiveness, right? But it's more than that. What got to me was just meeting the old time miners and just listening to stories back in the day, what they did in 1960s, 1980s, 70s, and then you realize that the history of North America, especially the western part of the U.S. and even Canada, was all based on mining industry. If you look at it, the East Coast, most of the settlers came in, right? The first gold rush was North Carolina. Then the second gold rush was in California in 1849. That's why you got the 49ers.
Mhm.
And then you got Alaska was the third gold rush. And so you can see the western states in U.S. was all to do with mining, from Colorado, Denver Nuggets, mining, Dakotas to Montana, Wyoming, New Mexico, all the way to Arizona, all the way out there. So all the western states was driven by obviously industry and economics, but it was all driven by mining, right? From copper, gold, and silver. That's
Mhm.
why if you look at California, it's called the Golden State.
Yeah.
And then they found so much silver in Carson City. That's why Nevada was called the Silver State, right?
Really?
And then,
Oh
yeah.
yeah, that's yeah, that would make sense.
And so I think John Mackey was the one. That's why the School of Mines over there in UNR is called Mackey School of Mines, right? So he was the one who was Carson City, and that's why Reno and Sacramento was the big mining hubs, and that's why later on Vegas became the big one, but citywide. But Reno was the heart and center with Carson City, right, in Nevada.
Mhm.
And then Seattle was formed because of it was the midpoint of people moving from California to Alaska to get all their tools before they go to Alaska. So Seattle was also one of the mining reasons, settlers and stuff, right? So it's
Mhm.
fascinating. You start looking at the history of it,
Yeah.
why mining is such a huge component on immigration of American settlement and even Canadian settlement, right? In British Columbia, Yukon, and so forth.
Yeah. Do you feel like that like did you have much of that knowledge before like going too far into this, or was that just something that you just discovered throughout,
I
your career?
well, I was got fascinating in school, right? So like, what's happening? Why are people here? And so, like I said, I was a huge history buff. I watched too many Indiana Jones movies, and so I got really fascinated by the history of mining. And you can see that the New World was colonized because of mining. And if you look at it, the Spaniards, when it came to South America, and they were taking silver mines from Mexico and so forth, right, from Peru and Argentina and Brazil back to the European countries, and then with Africa as well. So you can see that most of the trading was spices and mining, and so that's why if you look at the two oldest history, I won't say the second one, but one of the oldest profession is mining in the history of mankind, right, for uh, development of civilization. So that kind of got me very fascinating with the industry.
Yeah. And would you say, I mean, obviously things have changed a lot over the years. So would you say like from what you've experienced throughout your career of, the methods that are, used now and, the people that are, mining versus that history and from what you
Yeah.
researched and saw and all that, how would you say there's quite a difference?
I think it's remarkable technology-wise, and mining has always been a big component of harnessing the new technology for economic reasons, but also for making life easier and how to bring obviously, I'll be talking about finance again, how to bring costs down and how to make more money, right? Just like any industry, it's all about making money. So they've been utilizing optimization, robotics, AI to automation. And so all of those technology is so potent in the industry that in my short period of me, I'm only been in the industry for 15 years, I've seen such a huge change of technology. Like they're putting fiber cables underground, and they're putting Wi-Fi's, and you can actually have cell calls at around 1,000 feet underground. You can pick up
Wow.
cell phones. So technology is increasing so much, and it's evolving as we go. And now, if you look at it in the media, they're talking about asteroid mining and all that stuff. And even if you talk about movies, right? Aliens, the movie. Why did those colonization went to other planets for mining? So you
Yeah.
can see that that'd be the first industry. If we go to Mars or we go to the moon, that'd be the first industry which gonna go there to harness the resources, right? And
Yeah.
so you can see that a lot of there's not media attention to mining, but mining would be the pioneer if you're gonna go colonize any planets in the future.
Do you also think that the safety part of mining, have you witnessed also, increasing a lot with this tech or any sort of awareness as well?
Yes, we got so many new technologies. Like we got sensors in the heads of the miners, so they got their own headlights,
Mhm.
and you can monitor them in real time. Where are they in the mine? Because we got nodes every 10, 50 feet where they go to bing, bing, bing. So you create a three-dimensional monitoring system, so for safety reasons. So if something happens and everyone had to escape, and you see that, hey, there's two beings underground, they're still
Mhm.
underground. So you can go and find out exactly where they are because you know that the nodes are saying that they're in the direction. So the
Wow.
safety culture is massive because it's also media attention, which is very bad media with mining historically
Mhm.
about safety and environmental permits and destruction. And I know and so people focus so much on that, but um, bad media is bad for business for mining companies. So they want to make sure they put a good forth and bring trust to the community and society, saying, hey, we are not as back in the day, which was bad, but with all this technology, we are fixing the mindset of the new generation. It's we try to mine it environmentally because why would you pollute the water we drink in or we spend time in, right?
Mhm.
And so I think the media is still focusing on some of the incidents which happened in 1950s and 40s, but the modern wise, we are very aware of our influence to the environment and safety culture to make sure everyone goes home safely, right? Because um, I believe that one death is too much, and
Mhm.
I don't want to attend someone's funeral for no reason if I'm responsible for their life because as an engineer, your design and your scheduling affects the miners, and if you design it wrongly and you cause a ground failure, then think about it. Can you sleep at nighttime, right? Can you think about all the stuff? So
Yeah.
there's a lot of moral and ethics comes into play, and you have to think about that every life matters and make sure everyone goes home safely.
Mhm. And would you say, because I know with some of the guests that we've had on the podcast so far, they've brought up the point that some of these mines, obviously not naming any names, seem to focus a lot more on the economic aspects rather than the individual miners themselves. So, from what you've witnessed, specifically in your roles of also taking on some of the finance aspects, how would you say the industry tends to prioritize its assets or workers or anything of that nature?
I think like you put a good point there, Aiden. It's a fine line, and I think most of the important thing is you have to stand up for your own statement, your ethics, your own moral compass. And some companies do shortcuts,
Mhm.
and you as an individual have to decide, do you want to be part of the organization or not, right? And I can't say everyone's bad, everyone's evil, but it's to do with um, remember I told you like my background was you spend time with the miners, you have more empathy and sympathy for the workers and what their perception reality is, right?
Yeah.
And the problem you find is this is my two cents. Maybe I'm being judgmental here, but I think you have to work from the bottom up and to understand the struggle of the people who are actually breaking the rock. That's one of the hardest jobs, like you're drilling, you're blasting, right? You're doing all the physical labor job.
Mhm.
And then if you just stay in the office and not actually go and meet the people and make some connection and understand what they're going through, then you have a disconnect of reality, and you start just focusing so much on numbers, and you look at people as numbers and not as, humans. And so
Yeah.
I think the empathetic part of it is you have to change that mindset. And I think a lot of people do change, some people don't. But again, it's about, I'm just throwing a number here again.
Yeah.
If you bring someone who's only in financial background, all they care about is spreadsheet, right? How we cut costs. Oh, why we spend this much money, so forth. But if you don't put the human element behind those numbers, then that's when you have those issues of greed. And I think that's one of the, I can't say how to fix it, but um, as a corporation, when you set up your goals and your agendas, you have to focus on your people is your biggest strength, because um, my job is computer, right? I design and stuff. The real guys who, I make money because when the miners break rock, right? If they don't break rock, I'm useless. So that's how you should be thinking about is who are actually doing it and how can you make their life easier? Because mining is very simple if you think about it. You break rock from point A and you take it to point B, which is a mill,
Mhm.
right? The complication is always the logistics of how can you move it as efficiently to point A to point B, right? And every mine has their issues, right? And so you as a manager is to break the barriers of your team and the people who are doing the job so they can do it more efficiently and safely. And
Mhm.
I totally understand. You need to have regulations because otherwise people are gonna abuse it, and so you have to do your ethical and moral duty of doing it, the due diligence to make sure that this is my point of view. I don't know about other people, but
Yeah.
um, I'd rather do the thing the right way and cost me maybe a little bit more money than trying to shortcut and cost someone's fatality. So I think that's something employee have to decide too. What kind of people do you want to work for? What company you want to work for, right? I can't
Mhm.
tell you, but some people in hard sport they have no choice, but they have to do what the boss tells them, right? So it's hard, especially when you work for in third world countries where people are trying to feed their kids, and so they just do what the boss tells them, and then they can cause some bad stuff to happen, right?
Yeah.
So I know it's a hard question. It's an ethical question and a more and a philosophical question. How do you solve it? I don't have the answer, but from my point of view, I rather choose the company who are ethically, morally stand for their principles and not work for companies who don't. That's my
Mhm.
2 cents.
And do you think that I've heard sometimes the sentiment brought up that they think that leadership should have, like exactly what you just said, that leadership, whether they started from the bottom or from the bottom up to management and all that, even if they didn't do it, that like they should have some sort of experience with that. Do you think that like if they, just off of obviously your own opinion, if they had some sort of relevant experience with that, even if it was like coming in and just like seeing exactly how everything works, do you think that that could start to fix some issues, or is that not,
I,
you
I
don't think that would
I
do much?
I agree with you. I think if you look at the how the Australian companies do it, I think we should follow the similar suit. And I maybe mentioned it where in Australia, a mining engineer, even a geologist, they go spend 1 year to 2 years underground as a miner before they even touch the technical stuff. And if you notice, most of the Aussies, they jump to leadership position really quickly because they get that exposure with a lot of North American, even Canadians or Americans, even Mexican, don't get the exposure or chance to work in the field. And I think if we introduce that to the mindset, we will have more empathy to the miners and actually have more understanding of um, understanding the ethical and moral part of it from working bottom up.
Yeah, no, for sure. And then, obviously touching on some pretty big topics, when it comes to, also the environmental side of things and, moving, into the, energy transition, that, are trying, the world is trying to currently undertake.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you think mining fits into that? Obviously it's a feeder into, it's directly enabling battery tech and all this technology, but like how do you see mining changing, and just like it has with the history that you referenced to, like where it is now?
You can see that it's where we're heading is actually a good thing. My thing is progress is, if you understand that we're in the energy revolution right now, we are transferring. But if you normally think about societal wise, if you bring the cost of energy down, that also brings the price of goods and services down, right? And then also it decreases the line of poverty to even a bottom level. So example would be like transportation, right? From a farm. So you're growing, say, I'm just throwing it here, tropical island kid, bananas or pineapple, right?
Yeah.
So you're growing pineapples or bananas from on a farm. You want to sell it to the wholesaler, right? The middleman. So what is the biggest cost you see is the transportation and also collecting the plantation, right? The whatever pineapples you are. So that costs what? Fuel, energy, right? To harvest it. Then it costs you fuel and energy to transport it to the warehouse. Then it also costs you fuel and energy to transport to, say, Walmart or some other company. Sorry, I shouldn't say company name. Some other store's name. But then you can see that the energy requirement to do that is what the cost then goes to the customer, right? For example, if pineapple is here harvested costs you $3, per pineapple, then the middleman, because he wants to make money because it costs him to transport, brings it to $5, and by the time it goes to the consumer, the pineapple is now worth, I'm just throwing a number here, $10 a pineapple. So if we bring the energy cost down, then all of a sudden it's going to go to the customer. So instead of you paying $10 if the energy was lower, you're paying $5. So you can see how important energy is to societal wise. I'm just giving an example. And so mining is one section of it, but we don't have the infrastructure to support 100% of the world or even the country going into electrical. So we have to come up with a hybrid system of slowly replacing the fuel, but we can't 100% get rid of it. You know what I mean? And we can't fast track it, and that's one of the biggest issues you having in the energy or electrical vehicle is coming up with a game plan to systematically change it. And that system is not going to change over 1 year or 2 years. It's going to take you at least 10 to 15 years, right? And on top of that, you have to think about nuclear power, because nuclear is the most abundant energy. I remember, and maybe I'm wrong, but you can check me on this. I remember when in college, my professor said 1 kilogram of uranium has enough power to be about, I think, like 100 or 2,000 barrels of oil. So that was the energy conversion of uranium, and so
it's a fair amount.
Yeah, so that can replace an amount of uranium you have in America and Canada. You can actually start increasing your positive energy flow into your grid system to support the electrical vehicles, right? And because coal is dirty, uranium also has a dirty of, and we have to find a better way. How can we clean up its byproduct of uranium energy, right? Uranium after it depletes, and how it becomes very chaotic and how we store it. So you can see that with mining with uranium, nickel, lithium, and with the whole and copper. So those are your critical elements now going into the future for electrical power. And US has a lot of material still. I mean, if you think about it, if you really want to mine, you got in Nevada alone, Arizona alone, you got so much copper here. But there also is a national security issue too, because of the geopolitics happening globally right now, and we don't want to go into detail about it, but that actually complicates a lot of process, because you have other countries who want that resource as well. So obviously there's a huge, price gouging and so forth.
Yeah.
So it's a very complicated question. So anyway, hopefully I didn't answer it, but you have to think about a lot of it. So my thing is simple: is how do we take care of our energy in our grid system first? That's my number one crisis. How we fix that. Once you fix that, then you can combat the mining part of it. And it buys you time to figure out that strategy. But for now, if you look at it, we're still having blackouts in California and other parts of the U.S. based on power demand during wintertime or in summertime, right? You had the power issues in Texas, then you had some other issues in California with the blackouts with summer, with AC. So I think as a national security, I think we have to focus on the grid system, fix that before we start jumping into the demand, excess demand now of everyone demanding electrical vehicles. And you can see that no one's talking about this right now. So that scares the hell out of me.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's really true. And specifically, we had the past 2 out of 3 of the past interviews, they were in coal, and one specifically was saying, yeah, like it's not going away anytime soon. What's your like? Do you think that that's still really here to stay until the proper infrastructure can actually be used to sustain that transition, or what do you think?
100% agree with it. He said that we don't have the infrastructure to replace the coal power plant, and you still need coal for making steel, right? Because you need iron and coal to make steel with the carbon, and so coal is still going to be important to the in the industry, and it's not going to go away until I think government and policies change, take radical, and you know how it is. It's governments are reactive, not proactive, and so until we hit the, you know what I mean, thinking like we're about here, then they're gonna react. So I think we are right here, and and that's one of the problems with political items with anything, right? They make it politicize it, and it delays a lot of things we need to do, and then they don't do it until they throw more money at it to fix it, you know. And but that's just human nature, and that's how the whole global politics have been working. It's always reactive. But apart from looking at China, China is the only one being proactive because the government stays the same. So they planned for 30, 40 years to set up the infrastructure. Whereas the democratic countries, you have so much infighting that no one reacts until we're about to sink. And then we start pulling the water out. But that's just democracy for you, man. You can't change it, and that's part of people with their opinions. You have to listen to everyone's side. You can't be a dictator and make one choice only. So I think that's a struggle, but that gets way more into regulations and all that stuff with it. And I think that's just the nature of the beast. I don't think, Aiden, we can change that. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's just my 2 cents. You're always gonna deal with that item going forward.
Yeah, no, for sure, 100%. And I think that we've touched on a lot of really important topics so far. So for, someone who's, coming into the mining industry, specifically maybe from, a background somewhat similar to yours where, it's not as common, what advice do you think you would give them in terms of, how to start, where to go, exactly what to be looking for, why they should even be going into such a career? Like, I know that's a lot, but what do you think you would say?
One thing I love about the industry is the people. There's some really amazing people, and so my advice would be fearless. Be okay to make mistakes. You're gonna make a lot of mistakes, and I think failure is the best teacher. And trust me, I made a lot of mistakes myself too. I can write a huge essay about that, and you can probably 5, 6 pages. But to anyone getting the mining industry, it's an amazing industry. To me, the people part of it made me love this industry. I met some amazing human beings in this industry, and I've been everywhere. And I can't say one bad thing. Like I live in small town America for how many years now, and I love it. It's funny because like I grew up in a city, and so and we live in a city, and people like don't talk to each other, right? So when you go to public transport, you put your headphones in, and you mind your own business, right? And it was funny when I first went to school in Montana, and my neighbor's like, "Good morning." I'm like, "Who is he talking to? Good morning? Why is he saying good morning to me?" And so the small town America got to me, and I met some amazing people in a small town here, and now I don't like going to cities. It's too traffic, and so I prefer smaller town where there's less traffic. You can move around, and actually people are nice to you, friendlier, and not honk and beep at you. And so um, I think take the risk. It's an amazing industry. I think you should take all the advantage you can. I was very fortunate to travel the world as well, um, and go to places which I never would have gone normally. And so it's about you as a personality, what you prefer, and I can't say everyone should do it, but I think if you're an adventurous person, um, willing to take travel the world and see places and experience new culture and new people, you'll love this industry. There's some very interesting stories from miners, and you'll have a crack. I can't say it's very not PG-13, so I can't say some of the stuff, but that'd be my advice. If you're adventurous, it's a really amazing industry, and you meet some really amazing people.
Yeah. Yeah. And kind of, wrapping this up a little bit, I know that you spoke a lot about, the mining industry, and, we know that it's somewhat controversial to some people outside of it and inside of it too. So you as an individual, besides, the fun aspects of it that, you've touched on and all that, what else do you do it for besides just the money? Besides that, is there any other, feeling of, whether it's the people around you or, your duty to something else? Like why exactly do you do this besides, the pay and the fun? You said.
The two things would be the people. I love the mining industry people. I kind of speak highly about it. Um, like imagine first time I ended up in Northern Nevada, right? My first week, I don't know anybody. All of a sudden, I get invited to this keg party the weekend, and it's a geologist from Alabama doing what you call it, with the boil, with fish boil or no, crayfish, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a boil with potatoes and sausage, and they had this huge keg of beer, and then I'm just here, just started, and there's 20 of these guys, geologists, engineers, is hanging out, chilling out, and that's just normal across the board anywhere you go. So the people, I just like I said, and the second part was I think the coolest experience, which got me addicted to it, was the first time I designed something like a new drift to an ore body. And then I went underground giddy. I'm like, hey, I'm gonna go, and I see the design which I did mined out actual. It just made
Wow.
me like, holy crap, I designed that and someone
You
mined
did
it.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that experience, those two, like you design something and actually see it happen, and so that, I mean, to me, that's kind of the coolest stuff. And then think about this: when you go underground, no one touched that rock for millions of years or thousands of years, and
Yeah.
then you design that drift underground or the no open pit or whatever you design, and then you see it come to life. That actually to me is like the coolest thing. And sometimes a joke, I
Yeah,
might
for
find a
sure.
dinosaur down there, but there's no dinosaurs.
Well,
So
not yet, at least.
yeah, so
Maybe
but
later.
anyways, but those two aspects, I would say, the people, and then seeing something you design come to life. So that's actually gratification. Like, I made that.
Well, thank you so much, Raj, for coming on and offering all these insights into the industry and all the help for people that are interested in all that. I really appreciate it, man. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Aiden. Thank you for
All
having
right,
me. Appreciate it.
I'll catch you later. Thank you so
All
much.
right,
Have a
see
good
ya.
one.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much for listening to Voices from Below. If you or anyone you know wants to be featured on Voices from Below, you can reach us at voicesfrombelowpodcast@gmail.com. That is voicesfrombelowpodcast@gmail.com. Thank you so much for listening, and we hope to catch you in the next episode.